All right, we've got Julie Kelly with us now here on Clay and Buck. She is a phenomenal analyst and writer, and you should check out her Substack. Julie, what is the name of the Substack again?
Hey, Buck, it is Declassified with Julie Kelly.
There you go. It's an excellent Substack. Highly recommend. So, Julie, okay, yes, we've had you on for the You Told Us So a few times. And yes, you told us not only would Trump be indicted, but that it would be specifically an indictment related to election 2020 and January 6th. Were you surprised at all by the charges? I mean the specific charges, not that there were any.
Right, exactly. No, I wasn't. Three out of the four were mentioned in the January 6th Select Committee report. I also suspected that obstruction of an official proceeding, that 1512C2, would be the top charge. It was actually the third charge, not that it matters. That is the most common felony for January 6th. More than 300 defendants slapped with that felony. So I wasn't really surprised, but I have to admit, Buck, I was really surprised at how just sloppy and juvenile the indictment was. It's basically, for the most part, a cut and paste job from the January 6th Select Committee. I think DOJ and Jack Smith should be embarrassed by the document that they filed yesterday.
Yeah, to me, I said on Twitter and then today on the show, it's like a monologue you'd expect on MSNBC. I mean, it reads like, and he didn't even believe the thing he said to his lawyers. Like, how do you know that? And what are you saying? And the whole thing just feels like it falls apart with any honest scrutiny. But now let's kind of get into, there's what's fair and right, and there's what's happening, right, Julie? And when it comes to this Get Trump operation, we can't lose sight of the latter, as in what they're doing to him and how this is going to play out. For example, on the obstruction of official proceeding, they have sent other J6 defendants to real prison terms based on that, as I understand it. Is that right?
Oh, they absolutely have. I mean, the most infamous defendant is, of course, Jacob Chansley, the QAnon shaman. And keep in mind, not only prison sentences after a plea agreement or conviction at trial, these judges have held some defendants in pretrial detention, meaning denying them bail, because they were charged with obstruction and a few other misdemeanors. I mean, Jacob Chansley was not charged with assaulting a police officer or vandalizing property directly. We saw him on video walking around in numerous instances with police right nearby. But they denied Jacob Chansley's bail. And finally, after 10 months in base solitary confinement, Jacob Chansley was tormented into pleading guilty for obstruction, then sentenced to 41 months in prison. So that a guilty conviction can land someone anywhere between 3 and 5 years in jail, but also be the basis for pretrial detention. And so will Jack Smith ask that? I know you and I have talked about that. I have a column up kind of detailing a major court decision and then recent case law that could justify that. But I guess we'll find out later today or tomorrow when Trump is arraigned. But this is not the only indictment that's coming down in this matter, Buck. There will be superseding indictments.
There
just
will.
like we saw last week. Yeah, absolutely. And I think people should still prepare for a possible seditious conspiracy indictment with Trump and the co-conspirators who were cited in the indictment yesterday.
We're speaking to Julie Kelly, Declassified as her Substack. Julie, when you just said before they may get, they may try to get pretrial detainment of Donald Trump, I think the first instinct that I have and everyone else listening has is that's crazy. And then it might kick in, the thought might come into our minds of, oh, but the judge in this case is about as anti-Trump as could be, right? I mean, like walk us through what we should expect because, right, it would be up to the judge, and this judge, not a Trump voter from what it seems.
Not a Trump fan at all. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed, with the exception of Beryl Howell, to have a worse judge than Tanya Chutkan. I almost fell off my chair when I saw her initials at the top of that indictment because I tweeted, you probably saw it, Trump is doomed. Not only did she author the ruling that forced Donald Trump to produce all of his records to the January 6th committee, denying him executive privilege. She is the toughest judge when it comes to handing down sentences for January 6ers. In fact, in a few occasions, she has sentenced J6ers to more prison time than what the DOJ has asked for. And I'll tell you what, Buck, I was in her courtroom a few months ago, an empty courtroom, of course, with a defendant who was convicted of the four common misdemeanors. He was inside the building for 11 minutes. She spent 15 minutes berating this man over trespassing at the Capitol. She also berated him for choosing to move forward with a jury trial rather than pleading guilty, because that wasted all sorts of resources, apparently. Because most defendants who get her assigned as a judge, they plead out because they know how tough she is. And you could just sense, I was watching her, and you could just sense she was so condescending. You could just feel the contempt that she had for this man who committed no violent crime. And so this is what Donald Trump is up against. And getting Tanya Chutkan as a judge was probably worse news than the indictment itself.
Wow. Okay, so this then brings me to the next part of this. You know, we had Andy on, Andy McCarthy before, and I was asking about the timing here. You know, Clay has thought all along that they were going to be able to delay these trials till after the election. I keep telling Clay, they're not bringing these trials to delay them, my friend. Like, this is just not going to happen. They're meaning the system won't. Yes, under a normal regime, there should be delays and challenges, but if they're going to ram it through, they're going to ram it through. And clearly they want to do this before the election. So let's just assume, I asked Andy the same thing. He said, I don't know. I mean, they might try to get this one probably before the election. If he's got the worst judge he could possibly have, or close to it, I think you said probably number 2, and a jury pool that is comprised of the most high concentration of anti-Trump individuals, everyday citizens in the country, what happens here? I mean, people keep asking me, can Trump go to prison? Are they really going to try to do that?
Well, look, I sort of agree with Clay, and I just told Megyn Kelly this as well. I don't see either one of these cases going to trial before the election. Most importantly, Jack Smith does not want the classified documents case to go to trial. It's a joke. There is nothing there. And they are trying desperately to withhold these alleged classified documents, even from Donald Trump, under these crazy protective orders. And furthermore, they have a very tough judge who has got DOJ's number, Judge Aileen Cannon in Southern Florida, and she is not putting up with any bad behavior from DOJ. They don't want that case to go to trial. This would be really hard-pressed, a case of this magnitude, to go to trial that quickly. For example, the Proud Boys trial, the seditious conspiracy, it was almost 2 years after the defendants were first arrested and charged, and then a year later charged with seditious conspiracy. So it would be really hard, just in a normal circumstance, to put Trump's January 6th case to trial before the election. But as I said, Jack Smith is going to continue to supersede, indict this original indictment. He's going to add charges. He's going to add co-defendants, which then sets the Speedy Trial Act clock backwards to the very beginning. So I don't think he wants either one to go to trial before the election. He wants death by 1,000 cuts, because you could see how no matter what kind of bad news comes out about the Biden family crime racket or anything of the Democrats, this is going to be a great way for Jack Smith and the DOJ to use this as a ruse to pivot away, deflect attention from what's happening with the Democrats.
So then what I take from you is you think, or your assessment at this point, and your assessment was they were going to indict him a whole bunch, so here we are, but your assessment going forward is this is effectively the dirtiest political campaign in history, hijacking the DOJ to do it. Meaning they're not actually likely to lock him up in a cell before the election or even get to that point where they could through a trial. But by bringing all this stuff, they muddy him up and they create this whole Trump is a criminal narrative that they're going to run on. Is that about right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. They want the headlines. They want to suck all the oxygen out of the general, but also the Republican primary. You know, this is the top issue. This is a huge issue with Republican voters. So how Donald Trump's Republican opponents respond to this, and we see really tepid responses coming out from just a few of them. I mean, Mike Pence's response was embarrassing. I don't think Ron DeSantis's was any better. So this is going to be a clarifying issue in the Republican primary. And then Jack Smith, who is a creature of DOJ, he spent 4.5 years in the DOJ under Barack Obama. He worked for 2.5 years at Main Justice with Lisa Monaco, the Deputy Attorney General right now. He understands very clearly his marching orders, and he's going to do whatever he's told or whatever he senses. We saw this yesterday with his pathetic statement. That was, he was nervous. He was clearly just overly agitated. He used all sorts of hyperbole that had nothing to do with the indictment. As he said, Donald J. Trump, he practically spit out his name. So very few Americans are going to view him as a fair arbiter of justice and nothing more than another Democratic political operative disguised as a federal prosecutor.
Julie Kelly, everybody. Declassified is her Substack. Go check it out. Julie, we're going to be talking to you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Buck. Appreciate it.